Alright, something new. Gonna go over my own matches and go through my decision making and such. Maybe it'll internalize better for me, and maybe it'll help out whoever decides to watch this as well. I'm not going to talk too much about the team, but the gist of it is it's a pretty hyper offense team based around Kyogre and Zamazenta. There's a little bit of support from Clefairy, but otherwise it's pretty much all offense. There's Taunt on the Chenpao and Tailwind on Roaring Moon, which provides a little bit of support, but generally you're positioning so that you can get these good trades off, since Kyogre, Urshifu, and Chenpao all really like trading effectively, and Zamazenta is really good for forcing those decisions out of the opponent with wide guard or just straight up damage. So this is a new rank season, so we're 0-0 so far. And so first match against Ice Rider Miraidon. The Grimmsnarl is the biggest standout to me. It's been pretty common in this regulation. Hands Farigiraf, Hearthflame used to be really popular with Miraidon in the past, and so we've seen this a million times, but those three next to Grimmsnarl is a little bit new. But basically my plan here was what I usually like doing against Grimmsnarl is leading a special attacker alongside a physical attacker. And in this scenario, Chenpao is probably the best one to lead off with, since it threatens Miraidon. It threatens solid damage or taunt into the Ice Rider. And those are the main two I'm mainly looking out for in this lead. So, and the back, Zamazenta is always going to come against Ice Rider. Just having that type advantage, like being able to resist the Glacial Lance and put up the wide guard, is really nice. So yeah, Grimmsnarl, Miraidon, these are the two Pokemon I kind of expected to see just looking at the team preview. Obviously a team like that can flex a lot, but like you usually see Miraidon leads if they're on the team, and Grimmsnarl lead makes sense, although some people opt for back Grimmsnarl too. So yeah, my plan here, just take out the Grimmsnarl so that it can only get one screen up at a time. He's got to choose between Light Screen and Reflect in this scenario, and just committing the Terra Grass just to make sure Kyogre doesn't take too much damage from like a Electro Drift or Volt Switch. But yeah, I mean, in this scenario I don't really feel like I'm going to need the Terra Dragon on Zamazenta later, so I feel fine burning this just to get the tempo. And Grimmsnarl kind of forces that, like it forces me to play faster, because I can't, if I double protect to scout out Miraidon's move, which I'm assuming right here is Choice Specs, so if I protect to scout out the move, then Grimmsnarl is going to get up something for free. So it does kind of force my hand and up the tempo of the game, but this team is usually fine playing pretty fast. So he does get the screen up there, but we are going to take the KO here with the Origin Pulse, which is nice. Light Screen did go up, but yeah. We're fine with this trade here. We did see that Miraidon is faster than our Chenpao. This Chenpao in particular is adamant, which is not something I'm super locked in on that. I was just testing out adamant plus Ice Spinner. But yeah, it's not super uncommon to see Chenpao's outspeeding Miraidon a lot nowadays, because Miraidon are opting for more bulk and lowering that speed stat. So regardless, Ice Rider comes in, and we have a pretty I would say this switch is fine, because Miraidon's locked into Dazzling Gleam, which really isn't going to do too much damage. And if Ice Rider puts up Trick Room, then our Chen Pao suddenly becomes faster than Miraidon, which we saw that speeder interaction on the first turn. So I think this is a fairly safe switch on my end. He would have had to do something crazy, like a hard read with like high horsepower into that Kyogre slot, which would be really crazy considering it's Terra Grass. So. But he does end up going for the Terra Water, probably to avoid Origin Pulse damage and potential Dark attack coming out of Chen Pao. So that makes a lot of sense. But we get to keep our Chen Pao alive here. And now Miraidon's locked into Dazzling Gleam. And we have Wide Guard pressure, so... yeah, this is a pretty, like, Miraidon, I think, is very much pressured to switch out in this scenario. And we're going to go into our Clefairy, which is going to lessen the damage that Zamazenta takes here. And also gives us a threat of After You later. So he does stay in and go for Dazzling Gleam, which ends up critting us. But, overall, we're feeling fine about this, to be honest. Miraidon is still not outputting like the restricted levels of damage that it needs to. So, yeah, he is end up switching it out here. And Ice Rider, like, we're not really too concerned about what it's going to do this turn. Yeah, follow me, make sure that high horsepower doesn't hit Zama, and Glacial Lance would have done basically nothing, so pretty safe play to go for the follow me plus body press there, because we know Dazzling Gleam is not knocking out Zama there either. Double Protect here just to burn the wide Trick Room turns and cover for any potential fake outs. And I believe there's still Trick Room turns left in this scenario, but with Clefairy on the field, having that follow me against Iron Hands is really nice. A lot of Iron Hands are not running Heavy Slam these days, so the strongest attack you're going to get into Clefairy is going to be Wild Charge, which without the Cork Drive boost, without the Electric Terrain boost, is not going to deal nearly as much damage as it needs to. And besides that, any amount of like damage that Clefairy takes is not damage into Zama, so pretty safe moves here. Like high horsepower is actually still not gonna knock out Zama, but we're fine just clicking follow me just anyway. So yeah, Drain Punch not doing too much, even on a crit. That was like 40 damage, so a little bit of chip in. And Ice Rider does get the high horsepower out, so still not opting to click Glacial Lance. And on this turn, Trick Room ends, so now we have pretty big pressure here. I still think that Zamazenta is not going to die to the Glacial Lance, so we're actually fine going for damage here into the Iron Hand slot, because if another Trick Room goes up, that's actually fine. Like, we KO Ice Rider, and then Miraidon in the back has to deal with Trick Room, in which Chen Pao is faster than it under Trick Room, as we saw in turn 1, and Kyogre is faster than it. So second Trick Room coming up is not a big deal, and follow me is always going to absorb at least one attack here, so yeah, we love to see that. And yeah, we've got a pretty free, I mean, I guess in theory they could double protect, but doesn't seem likely, and even still, I think we're still in the driver's seat here. We just sack Clefairy, and then whatever comes in has speed control, basically. So we're basically just looking at the Miraidon in the future here. Like, that's going to be the last Pokemon that we need to take down. Light Screen is expiring soon or has already expired. I actually haven't checked yet, but yeah, pretty easy KO on Ice Rider there. And Drain Punch finally knocks out Clefairy, but like it's done its job. It kept Zamazenta safe for so many turns here. And now we have a free switch into our offense. And Light Screen just wore off, so we're big chillin'. We know Miraidon's coming in here, so Chien-Pao comes out. So here, I think I go for Double Protect to scout out what Miraidon's locking into. So it's kind of in a lot of trouble here, because if it goes for an electric move, then the Terragrass Kyogre in the back becomes much harder to take down. And if it goes for a Draco Meteor, it drops its own special attack. So Kyogre also ends up not walling it, but like resisting quite a bit of that damage, just because of its naturally high special defense. So we get to scout out what move it's locking into and then sort of play from there. And we see he locked into Dazzling Gleam, so this pretty much wraps up the game, right? Because now we just always get to do Wide Guard here. It's just completely free. And we get a free KO on the Miraidon. And Iron Hands, no matter, Iron Hands only has single target attacks, so there's no way it's going to be able to kill this many Pokemon this quickly. Especially with Kyogre in the back with the speed advantage, so. There we go. And I think that game really, really it showcased the power of that Clefairy and the Zamazenta. They just stayed on the field for so long. Clefairy keeping it alive, Zamazenta just always outputting solid damage, and then also having the supportive option of Wide Guard ended up clinching the end game there. So this is kind of how it always tends to happen, in which I think Kyogre as a lead, or even in team preview, puts on a lot of pressure. Just the threat of Roaring Moon Tailwind plus Kyogre Water Spout in team preview tends to warp people's leads, and you can kind of play around that a lot of the time. This match was a little bit hard to show that, because I think Grimmsnarl Miraidon is a lead that makes sense just based on those Pokemon and not necessarily on the matchup side of it. But in general, if you see Kyogre and you see a Tailwind user on the team, it's just something you have to respect, because if you lead wrong against that, you could literally just lose the whole game. And so this person, we are in Great Ball tier, so I don't expect to see the most optimized teams or anything, and this one obviously is lacking a second restricted, but it still has some very solid Pokemon on there. Koraidon, obviously, being able to turn off the rain and turn on the sun is a big issue. Incineroar and Amoonguss are both... Amoonguss especially is kind of an issue for my team, since Kyogre and Zamazenta both don't like going up against it. And Incineroar makes Chien-Pao's life a lot harder, which is tough, because I think Chien-Pao has to pull a lot of weight here against the Amoonguss and the Dragonite, possibly the Koraidon, but you kind of expect the Terra to go to Koraidon in this scenario. So this is one of those scenarios where I think matching the Tailwind makes a lot of sense, and Roaring Moon also just has a lot of offensive pressure. Being able to outspeed Annihilate, even if it's Scarf, being able to hit Amoonguss, being able to hit Koraidon, or match Tailwinds. Just a pretty versatile opener against this team. And that's usually what I like going for, is these leads that they try to cover multiple options with also not losing the entire game just based off of the lead. I think this lead is fairly safe in this scenario. Like, yeah, there wasn't really anything that I was super afraid of. Annihilate, I think you do have to respect somewhat. Like, just the threat of Scar Final Gambit can be really game-changing. But, yeah, Talonflame Dragonite being the lead here, so I think I opt to match Tailwind here, just in case Roaring Moon goes down. I don't want to be at a complete speed disadvantage. Actually, we'll see how the turn plays out, but given that I have Urshifu in the back, there is an argument not to match Tailwinds and try to just go on the offense, but I think I opt to match it here. So here we're switching Kyogre out. It's not a super safe switch into Chien-Pao. Like I said, this team's really offensive, so the defensive switches tend not to be very safe at all. But I really think that Kyogre are under threat of a lot of damage here from a potential extreme speed and Brave Bird. And I'd much rather lose my... I'd much rather put Kyogre in the back where it can reset the rain if needed. We do go down to Scale Shot Dragonite, which is kind of unexpected, I guess. Like, that was a set that was very common in Reg Age, but we didn't really expect to see it here. Dragonite is just one of those mons that it can run a lot of sets. Like, it's not the most threatening mon in this regulation just because the power level is so high, but it is, you know, it can run the Scale Shot set, it can run Choice Band Extreme Speed, it can run a lot of different things, so. And here, the Dragonite, even with the speed buff, Dragonite's base speed is pretty low, so I think I'm not too worried about the Talonflame in this scenario. And the double up here is mainly to try to... I think I was trying to catch a Koraidon switching in, but then again, that actually doesn't make any sense because Koraidon wouldn't want to take Ice Spinner either, so... The burn here is really unfortunate. But that recoil damage is really key, getting rid of the Gale Wings. Honestly, I think this turn I didn't make the best, or even the first two turns of this match, I don't think I made the best decisions, but Urshifu being faster than Dragonite even after the Scale Shot boost is pretty rough, so that is a Terra Burn for Dragonite, and it just goes down for free. And now we have a pretty good spot, I would say. Like, even though we're down one mon and Chien-Pao is burned, basically dead, we can pretty much win the Weather War unless Koraidon pivots out, which it seems very unlikely. So the play here that I believe I end up going for, because I think we both have Tailwind up, so Talonflame can outspeed and KO Urshifu possibly. So the way around that is we just swap in Kyogre, turn the sun off, lowering Koraidon's damage, and we get the Aqua Jet KO onto this Talonflame. So, and there's no way to stop this unless Talonflame switches out. This is the best case scenario, Koraidon protecting here instead of getting damage into that Chien-Pao. Yeah, but I guess he probably was afraid of Chien-Pao speed tying his Koraidon. Maybe he's not running max speed Koraidon and he thought Chien-Pao would outspeed it. And he goes for the protect there. But I think at the end of the day, I actually don't think this matters that much because it might have mattered actually. Yeah, because what ends up happening here is he close combats Urshifu and KOs it, and then I get a full HP water spout off, which ends the game pretty much. So yeah, I guess if he had gone for close combat there, I would have had to go for Origin Pulse. And then this game might be different. I actually don't know the calc behind -1 special defense Koraidon with Life Orb recoil versus Origin Pulse in the rain. But I imagine it might not KO. So maybe that turn actually did matter, and I got a little lucky, but the Terra Grass there is... I mean, I'm not going to talk about the what-ifs anymore, but in this specific scenario where he didn't close combat, my Kyogre is full HP, so Terra Grass is automatically means that I'm always going to get an attack off, because the Moongus can't Rage Powder at that point. So Koraidon has to pick and choose which Pokemon it's going to hit. So you either hit the Urshifu and KO it and take the full damage water spout, or you hit the Kyogre and you take Surging Strikes in the rain with the Life Orb. And yeah, I think either way, I'm pretty sure Koraidon dies to either of those after it uses close combat. And if it uses Flare Blitz, then, you know, Flare Blitz or Flame Charge, the damage isn't going to be enough. So I think that match actually wasn't the best decisions on my end. I think there's a lot that could have gone wrong. But yeah, the not bringing Zamazenta kind of left my team with a lack of like any amount of defense, so pivoting and positioning was kind of hard there, but we make it work. And for the last game of the session, this is a really like coin flippy team. Again, we're still not in the high enough ranks so that we start facing those guaranteed like super, well, not even super high level, but like at the high ladder you definitely run into less niche things, and it's usually just meta teams or like people trying to find their footing in the regional levels. So yeah, another Koraidon team. This one features Indeedee and Shadow Rider, so I'm expecting Expanding Force here. Fluttermane also is an issue, which is why I think I led Zamazenta. Fluttermane on these teams, on these Sun teams, tend to run Focus Sash, but as you can see, they have Lilligant, Hisui, Chenpao, and Calyrex Shadow Rider, which are all Pokemon that could possibly want the Focus Sash as well. So I actually think in this scenario, I would be surprised to see the Sash on Fluttermane, so Zamazenta feels like a pretty safe bring into it. Just being able to Heavy Slam KO it, or being able to Wide Guard the Icy Wind is potentially very useful to set up speed control. So yeah, I think looking at their team, I expect to see the Sash on Lilligant Hisui, and then probably Life Orb Chenpao is the only other item people have really been running. Booster Energy Fluttermane makes a lot of sense, and then Shadow Rider, you don't really know. Like, it could be running Life Orb is the most common choice after Sash, but if it's Life Orb Chenpao, it can't be Life Orb Shadow Rider. So it actually comes up in this specific turn right here. All the guesswork I just did on items, trying to guess what the Shadow Rider items were, it could have led me to figure out what the Shadow Rider item is here, but I didn't quite connect the dots until too late. So this turn actually could have gone really badly, because it ends up being Choice Scarf Shadow Rider, which is faster than Roaring Moon after the Cork Dried boost, and it has Draining Kiss. But yeah, Draining Kiss being 4 times effective, which is really scary, but as it turns out, Draining Kiss is a really, really weak move. So it doesn't KO the Roaring Moon. We get the Tailwind up, and I end up burning the Terra here just to stay safe from the Koraidon. But in this case, I'm pretty fine with it, just because burning the Terror here makes it so that I'm never going down. So even though we don't get the damage off that we need, we get the Tailwind up. And showing my Terror here is not the worst thing. Like, there's nothing really that I'm afraid of here. So here we end up going for knockoff plus heavy slam into that Shadow Rider slot, because I know it's Scarf now because I saw it outspeed Roaring Moon. So there's no protect threat. So either Shadow Rider switches and eats it, whoever switches in eats heavy slam plus knockoff, or we just get the straight up KO. So, and the other option is Shadow Rider staying in and defensively terroring, but in that scenario, like, a lot of the Terra types I don't think would survive. Like, I think if it's Terra Fairy, it dies to the heavy slam. If it's Terra Ghost, it still dies to knockoff. The only one that makes sense that it might survive is Terra Dark, but in that scenario, I'm just pretty happy taking my my KO. And he's Scarf locked into Draining Kiss, so I'm chilling. It's not dealing huge amounts of damage like that, but he ends up staying in. Knockoff picks up the one-hit KO, and we get free damage into Lilligant, which is really nice because I think that was where the sash was, so we get to pick it off for free. And in this scenario, Lilligant is not nearly as threatening as normal, just because we have the Tailwind up already, so we don't have to worry about the Chlorophyll speed overwhelming us before we get the Tailwind up. In this scenario, Roaring Moon and Zamazenta are naturally faster than Lilligant, so no big deal on that. Roaring Moon is in danger of going down to a Sucker Punch or an Ice Shard, so we get a switch for Urshifu. And yes, it ends up being Ice Shard, which does quite a big chunk of damage, honestly. Just clicking Body Press into that Lilligant is, what that actually does, like, I think it's a somewhat obvious protect, but what it does is it ensures that Lilligant is never attacking an Urshifu. Because let's say I read the protect and then I'm like, oh, I'm gonna hit Chen-Pao, and then Lilligant doesn't protect. That means it gets the Solar Blade off into Urshifu, and that's how things turn around, I think. Like, there's no need to make the super unnecessary risks here. So it's because I have the speed advantage, so that's why this is all guaranteed, I think. Yeah, guaranteed KO on Lilligant unless it gets double protect. And then the reason I go for Surging Strikes here is a little bit of a mistake on my end, because there's Photosynthesis on my Roaring Moon was activated because of the sun and not the booster energy. So I thought the booster energy had already been used up. And so my thinking was that Roaring Moon would be slower than Koraidon in the end game if I turned the sun off. But as it turns out, it didn't really matter. But regardless, the Surging Strikes does a lot of damage here, and I actually have a free KO on the Chen-Pao here, but this is the turn where I'm thinking about that Roaring Moon interaction that I thought of. Like, if I swap Zama into Kyogre and Aqua Jet the Chen-Pao, it's a free KO, but in this scenario, I'm thinking about the Roaring Moon speed thing that I just talked about, so instead I end up going for this Protect plus Body Press play, which, in hindsight, I had a pretty free thing here. But, yeah, he ends up revealing Wild Charge on his Koraidon, which is nice. And we get a KO on Chen-Pao. This could have gone wrong in some ways, like if he double targets into Zama, but yeah, as it turns out, it doesn't matter because that booster energy is still active on the Roaring Moon. which I would have saw if Roaring Moon ended up switching in here. So not a big deal at the end of the day, but just an important lesson to keep track of that, because that actually is a really important interaction. Preserving that booster energy, it means that switching out Roaring Moon becomes a lot more viable. But yeah, and here we're happy to let Urshifu go down, just take the KO. Game's pretty much over at this point anyway. It's just sort of like, I think with hyper offensive teams, like, it may seem tempting to swap around and try and get like the optimal matchups, but sometimes you want to just take your guaranteed chip damage. And I think on this team in particular, it matters a lot, because a lot of the mons put your enemies in 2-hit KO range. Like, let's say Zamazenta body presses, and all of a sudden that means this like Ice Rider the Terror, or maybe a bad example, but like basically, like, if Zama body presses something, then that puts it in range of Water Spout even if it resists it. Or like if Chen Pao gets a neutral hit Ice Spinner off, that usually means that Kyogre or Zamazenta is going to be able to clean up the KO. So it's kind of like everything, if you get that guaranteed chip damage, is putting it in range of a KO for later. Like, you don't just have to hunt those one-hit KOs for, like, with the advantageous type matchups. You can kind of just slow it down, or not even slow it down, you just take your hits where you can get them. And that's especially important for my team, just because there are types that I actually just struggle to hit. Like, water and grass are tough for the team, especially water, but yeah, we're happy just getting neutral hits of Zama in, or just getting water spouts down. So yeah, that is going to be it. I do have one more session recorded, but I'm going to do that at a later date. But hopefully this helps some of you, or it'll definitely help me in terms of figuring out what I'm doing wrong. So that's it for now. Thanks.